Hey everyone, welcome to the Quiz Wave.
Let's see how good is your animal knowledge. 50 questions. How many can you answer? Where does a dolphin live? Dolphin lives in marine. Do you know? Dolphins sleep with one eye open. Where does a lion live? Lion lives on land. Do you know? A lion's roar can be heard 5 miles away. Where does a penguin live? Penguin lives in both. Do you know? Penguins spend half their lives in the water. Where does a shark live? Shark lives in marine. Do you know? Sharks are older than trees. Where does a kangaroo live? Kangaroos live on land. Do you know? Kangaroos can't walk backward. Where does a sea turtle live? Sea turtles live in marine. Do you know? Sea turtles can hold their breath for hours. Where does a parrot live? Parrots live on land. Do you know? Parrots can mimic human speech. Where does a seal live? Seals lives in marine. Do you know? Seals can sleep underwater. Where does an elephant live? Elephants live on land. Do you know? Elephants mourn their dead. Where does a crab live? Crab lives in both. Do you know? Some crabs can climb trees. Where does a polar bear live? Polar bear lives in both. Do you know? Polar bears can swim more than 60 miles. Where does an octopus live? Octopus lives in marine. Do you know? Octopuses have 3 hearts. Where does a frog live? Frogs live in both. Do you know? Frogs drink water through their skin. Where does a crocodile live? Frogs live in both. Do you know? Frogs drink water through their skin. Where does a starfish live? Starfish live in marine. Do you know? Starfish have no brain or blood. Where does a hippopotamus live? Hippopotamus lives on land. Do you know? Hippos secrete natural sunscreen. Where does a flamingo live? Flamingo lives on land. Do you know? Flamingos turn pink from their diet. Where does a walrus live? Walrus live in marine. Do you know? Walruses use tusks to climb ice. Where does a salamander live? Salamanders lives in both. Do you know? Salamanders can regrow limbs. Where does a stingray live? Stingray lives in marine. Do you know? Stingrays are related to sharks. Where does a moose live? Moose lives on land. Do you know? Moose can dive 20 feet underwater. Where does a blue whale live? Blue whale live in marine. Do you know? Largest animal ever on Earth. Where does a beaver live? Beaver lives on land. Do you know? Beavers build dams that reshape rivers. Where does a jellyfish live? Jellyfish live in marine. Do you know? Jellyfish have no brain. Where does a duck live? Duck live in both. Do you know? Ducks have waterproof feathers. Where does a puffin live? Puffin live in both. Do you know? Puffins can fly and swim underwater. Where does a Komodo dragon live? Komodo dragon lives on land. Do you know? Largest lizard in the world. Where does a manta ray live? Manta ray live in marine. Do you know? Manta rays can leap out of water. Where does an otter live? Otter live in both. Do you know? Otters hold hands while sleeping. Where does a snail live? Snail live in both. Do you know? Some snails can sleep for years. Where does an orca live? Orca live in marine. Do you know? Orcas are the fastest marine mammals. Where does an archerfish live? Archerfish live in marine. Do you know? They shoot water to catch insects. Where does a platypus live? Platypus lives on land. Do you know? Platypuses lay eggs but are mammals. Where does an iguana live? Iguana lives on land. Do you know? Iguanas can fall 50 feet unharmed. Where does a manatee live? Manatee live in marine. Do you know? Manatees graze like underwater cows. Where does a pocket shark live? Pocket shark live in marine. Do you know? Pocket sharks glow in the dark. Where does a capybara live? Capybara live on land. Do you know? Largest rodent in the world. Where does a sea cucumber live? Sea cucumber live in marine. Do you know? They can expel internal organs when threatened. Where does a mud skipper live? Mud skipper live in both. Do you know? Mud skippers can walk on land. Where does a narwhal live? Narwhal live in marine. Do you know, their tusk is actually a giant tooth? Where does a red crab live? Red crab live in both. Do you know, millions migrate yearly to the ocean? Where does a swordfish live? Swordfish live in marine. Do you know, swordfish are extremely fast swimmers? Where does an emperor penguin live? Emperor penguin live in both. Do you know, they survive Antarctica's extreme cold? Where does a sea snake live? Sea snake live in marine. Do you know, sea snakes are highly venomous? Where does a Gila monster live? Gila monster lives on land. Do you know, one of the few venomous lizards? Where does a horseshoe crab live? Horseshoe live in marine. Do you know, their blue blood is used in medicine? Where does a blue-footed booby live? Blue-footed booby lives on land. Do you know, they perform a funny mating dance? Where does a flying fish live? Flying fish live in marine. Do you know, flying fish glide above water for long distances? Where does a hermit crab live? Hermit crab live in both. Do you know, they borrow shells for protection? Where does a sperm whale live? Sperm whale live in marine. Do you know, they dive over 2 kilometers deep for food?